Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fired Up, the podcast for marketers working in early and late stage startups. Hello there, everyone. Welcome back to Fired Up. My name's Morgan McClintic, and today we're going to be talking about how to unlock the full power of HubSpot. I'd say 95% of our clients use HubSpot, so this is really prevalent amongst startups and scale-ups out there. And to do that, I am joined by Nicole Pytel. Hey, Nicole, how are you?
Hey there, Morgan. I'm good. I am really glad we're having this conversation, and I'm really glad we have somebody very, very smart to walk us through it, because there is nobody else I would trust with HubSpot more than our guest today.
Right. Wonderful. Yes, she's done some great work with some of our clients already. And that is Fiona Smith. And she is a marketing automation and lifecycle consultant. Fiona, welcome to Fired Up. How are you?
Great. Thank you. I'm really happy to be here. And especially after that intro from Nicole, I don't know. We'll see how that goes. Right.
Well, we're thrilled to have you. So let's talk a little bit about all things HubSpot. When we engage with clients, they've often, like, one of the first bits of their MarTech stack that they buy is HubSpot, and maybe it's been installed properly. Maybe they've just sort of winged it a little bit. What are the most common mistakes that you see startups make when they're setting up HubSpot for the first time?
Yeah, definitely. I think the beauty and the pain and the beast of HubSpot, it is so easy to set up. It's so easy to get going from day one. You can do it yourself. But I think one of the major issues that I see, and one of the things that we need to fix later on, is the data and making sure that the data goes into the HubSpot instance. It's like clean data in, clean data out, the other way as well. It's something to be really careful of. And also making it too complicated or making it too simple. So the HubSpot should be seen as like a core tool that you use, not just a platform to send emails, but also not somewhere where you put 300 different workflows because Bob happened to like pink last week, So that's probably the two most things I see the most to try and steer away from.
Yeah, because HubSpot has a program, HubSpot for Startups. They give great discounts. And so you can go in and, if you're a VC-backed startup, and get a Marketing Starter, Marketing Hub Pro, and just get going. And it has some onboarding. HubSpot offers onboarding. Agencies like HubSpot partners like us and you also offer onboarding, but that's a cost. And so, often you think, I could probably do this myself. Is that a false economy?
Absolutely. And the problem usually with doing it for yourself is that an organization will look at it to solve a current problem rather than looking at as a scalable tool and where they want to be in 6 months. So it's definitely something that it's really nice to have like a partner like yourself that will be able to guide them through what those next steps looking like and to set their data and their flows up correctly now to be able to scale. It's a lot less effort and less cost to set it up correctly in the beginning than to go 12 months down the road and realize, oh no, my data's no good.
So two of the big things that our clients always want to see is, hey, we're collecting leads. Are they the right leads? And are deals progressing through the funnel? So how do you recommend structuring both life cycle stages and deal pipelines for B2B startups?
Out of the box, HubSpot will give you a life cycle that it has identified as what is, down the middle, the most median kind of line that people will follow. But it's different for every company. I think really before you go in and you start to deal with life cycles, and then on top of that, you've got scoring to move them through the life cycles, you've got to understand what is the success and your process and your success in the past. And that can usually be looked at, either you know it, or some people are like, oh, we have no process. We just throw it out there and people contact us and we sell. But that's not exactly true. There's always a method behind the madness, right? So as far as the life cycle, if you're going in for the first time, I would not even look at what HubSpot have as a life cycle. Just use it as a basis and then identify your process and how that fits with what they got. And if it doesn't, then adjust it to you. Otherwise, you can get caught in a loop where people are coming in and they're the subscriber and then they're a lead. Then they get to an MQL, move over into sales, and sales are like, who is this person? So the life cycle really needs to be customized for every business, in my experience. It's very rarely out of the box is going to be a one pattern fits all.
Right. And HubSpot's definition of what an MQL is and what an SQL is different than the industry. For example, they would say an SQL is ready to go to sales, whereas in a lot of startups we work with, an MQL is ready to go to sales, and an SQL is something that has been accepted by sales or is qualified by sales. And so just on the very basic definitions, SQL or MQL, you might be misaligned there between your business and the way that HubSpot is set up.
Absolutely. And I mean, the other example too, especially when you have integrations with third-party CRMs or like systems like Salesforce, is that some of those can completely skip the MQL. A salesperson working directly with a lead, they're already at that stage. So bringing them through that funnel and trying to work them through, there's a little bit of a hitch there. So it really has to be set up, and it's simple to change. Well, simple in theory to change.
Simple for you.
But it's really something that needs to be customized to your business. Otherwise, you're talking a language your salespeople aren't, and eventually you're not talking what a sale is. Some companies don't even use a sale as the end goal, right? It might be a level of engagement.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so let's talk about that Salesforce integration, because HubSpot has Sales Hub Pro. And so if you're using that as your sales CRM and HubSpot as your marketing CRM, obviously the two are tightly integrated. And so this problem goes away. And that's often one of the benefits of using HubSpot. But in many instances, in fact, most instances, sales teams are used to using Salesforce. So the sales team want to use Salesforce. Marketing team are using HubSpot. These two things need to integrate. They do integrate, but not easily. And so just talk us through that process.
Yeah, absolutely. So they're two different methodologies altogether. Even just the way that the technology itself is set up, with HubSpot being they have their hubs, but they're very flat. And Salesforce is very much built around objects and modules and stuff. For example, the difference between a lead and a contact in Salesforce is just a contact in HubSpot. So there's a little bit of matching there that you need to do, but put together, it can be a really powerful tool. And the reason I say that is that HubSpot has the front end. It's the customer facing front end that can pick up the interactions online and, build that activity and that history on a contact and feed that into Salesforce, which is much better. And Salesforce is a genius tool. It's much better at the offline kind of attribution. So getting the two together is very, very powerful. I see a lot of people struggle between the two on who is the source of truth. Is it HubSpot the source of truth or is Salesforce? Personally, most of the time I'd go with Salesforce as the source of truth, because generally it's been within the organization longer, but also it's just much more in depth. And leave HubSpot to do its job as a marketing tool, unless, of course, you're using the CRM within it. But it can be very powerful, the two of them put together. It's definitely something worth investigating. A recent client who had just recently set up Salesforce and HubSpot, a little bit of friction there. It's like siblings that will fight with each other, the Salesforce and the HubSpot, on who owns the lead and who gets to overwrite what. So if you're at that point and you're setting both at the same time, it's definitely worth getting help with that and having that map out for scale once again as well, because that's where it can get tricky. So if you're using it outside of how it's generally meant to be used.
Yeah, I feel like we could do an entire podcast series on HubSpot and Salesforce talking to one another, because there are so many challenges, so many ways that marketing and sales tend to butt heads. How do you like to handle the marketing to sales handoff from a HubSpot Salesforce perspective? Because that's such an important step. It's probably the most important step.
Absolutely. Yes. I think that the handoff between the two systems starts outside of the systems. It starts with a really clear understanding between the marketing team and the sales team on what actually is an MQL and what is a SQL, what is a SAL, or whatever language that you're using in your lifecycle. But it needs to start there with that understanding. The two, marketing and sales, working independently as in silos, it never works, right? What you end up doing is sending a bunch of leads over to sales that sales are rejecting and pushing back, and then your high values are getting lost in the churn. So I think very clearly documented processes. What is a lead? At what point? What actions? What intent signals make them an MQL? And that really is generally, again, outside looking at what has worked in the past and crunching those numbers really and setting that up. But generally, I'd like to go from HubSpot being the marketing engine and Salesforce being the sales engine. So at the point where it's an MQL, it's like marketing has done their job, hand it to sales. But at the same time, they want to measure the velocity and make sure that lead's being carried up, followed up on, and how that is going all the way through to conversion. But it's a group project. It's definitely a group project.
I'm really, really glad you brought up the conversation in the beginning, because that's the part that a lot of companies skip, especially startups when they're small. Maybe there's a couple of marketers and a couple of sales folk, and everybody just kind of assumes that they have the same definition for everything, and they don't really have that conversation typically until sales starts kicking back leads and going, what the heck is this? This isn't right, or these folks aren't ready, those kinds of things. So I'm really glad you brought up the point about having the conversation. This isn't just technology. It seems like more of like a forcing function to get the company aligned, even if the company is only a handful of people.
Absolutely. And this has been an age-old thing too, right? If you've been working in marketing for a very long time, the friction between sales and marketing has always existed. So this is just another iteration of that. You know, sales in the past has often not seen the value of marketing, and marketing don't think that sales are doing their job. It's been a constant thing, and it's just another iteration of that. And in any team, whether it be HubSpot or Marketo or whatever system that you're working with, it's a group effort.
I feel like marketing teams want to be able to see the lead progress, the opportunity progress all the way down the pipeline to, close one revenue. And yet it seems extremely difficult to do that, to actually then, you hand over from HubSpot into Salesforce, and in theory, then it carries on going down the pipeline, and Salesforce then updates the Lifecycle stage as it goes down, and marketing can report on their influence pipeline. But that seems to be a really hard. Why is that such a challenge?
It really is to do with that integration setup and having that integration set up correctly, because there are the indicators within Salesforce that an opportunity is progressing, and those can be passed back into HubSpot. And that's when you start to look at your velocity. If someone's being stuck in the life cycle, being able to set up your workflows to be alerted on that. That's when it comes to the fun stuff, right? When you really get into velocity and sending alerts and understanding all the way through to end. The good thing about doing that, and HubSpot have it like out of the box to a degree with their life cycle, as long as you have your integration set up correctly, moving between stages from Salesforce to HubSpot, HubSpot will report on the amount of days in a stage. And that's information that's already there. And then you use that information to create the velocity that works for your company. They should be in here for 9 days. And why are they sitting for 18 days in this stage when they should be moving through? That you can really get into the fun part of HubSpot and Salesforce integration.
Right. And I feel like there are different types of marketing qualified leads. Somebody who has come in and wants a demo is clearly a different kind of lead and would be sold to differently than someone who has taken a number of behavioral actions or has a number of intent triggers that goes, okay, they look like they're pretty interested, but they haven't asked for a demo, but this person's probably worth reaching out to. That's not going to work. And I find that that's the sort of friction that you can easily get, that not all leads are the same.
Absolutely. And to your point, when you go down the scoring hole, that's where you can get into a lot of trouble there. Like adding 5 points because they opened an email doesn't really take into account that someone left their laptop open at lunchtime. It's really the intent and the value of the intent that can move them through or make them skip straight into sales, depending on the actions that they take.
Well, you brought up lead scoring, so let's talk about it and kind of how it works in HubSpot and some of your best tips, because there are about 1 million different directions that folks can go in when it comes to lead scoring. So give us your take.
Yeah, I think the HubSpot out of the box, they've changed their structure, I believe, this year as well, which makes it a little bit difficult. Out of the box is very basic. Unless you're paying for the hub, Marketing Hub, I believe it's in. You can get your clicks and your opens and filled out forms and stuff quite simply. It also doesn't backscore, which is like a little bit of a problem for me. It's always been a little bit of a problem for me. But when you move up into the level and you get that as like an additional on top on your HubSpot, it starts to become valuable then when you can actually start to use intent signals, not just within HubSpot, because HubSpot is a great core for your business, but it's not the world that everybody lives in. So those scoring really need to get the intents from outside channels as well. That's why the integration with Salesforce or whatever CRM you're using, or even Google, LinkedIn, whatever, as much information as you can get in, the better, to get that where it starts to become more valuable. And it starts to give you the data to be able to analyze, to see what those true intent signals are that you were just talking about, right? And whether they should go to sales or whether someone is just like fluffing around. So it's great. And now with the next iteration of scoring, they're going with the AI scoring. That's where it gets interesting. That's part of their loop, I believe. They're doing the AI predictive scoring. It's quite interesting. I think that if you have a lot of history and you have a lot of data, it's worth playing around in. I think for a startup with limited data, you're not going to get the bang for your buck out of that, really, to be honest. I think that AI is wonderful. I use it every day, every single day without fail. But it still doesn't have the nuances of human logic yet. So letting it make decisions on scoring is almost like a black box to a salesperson. It's like you can't look back into that history. Maybe on an enterprise level, it'd be cool to have, but it's not there yet to me for scoring at least.
Right. I can understand that. If it has a large data set of MQLs to sort of say, hey, these are the ones, and these are the ones that actually went through to close one revenue, I can build like my own little model of, all right, this is what a good lead looks like, and this is what a bad lead looks like. But if you're a young company and you don't have that data history, there's no training data.
Yeah.
And so, it'll still do it, but it'll be making the wrong decisions and you won't know why. But you had mentioned here when it comes to lead scoring, so HubSpot does have a way of doing it, but you can also bring in other intent data or behavioral data from other sources. You might find it in Clay or what have you and say, okay, here's this, do they fit our ICP? And are they just close some funding? Are they looking to hire this particular position? And there might be other signals that you think, these guys are ready now when they weren't ready last week. And so I'm going to move them up.
It's not all, as I mentioned, it's not all like a HubSpot universe. HubSpot's not everywhere. So it only knows what it knows. So it's really as good as the data, the data you put in is what you get out.
So the lead scoring and then that handover is something that in an early stage company, you're going to have to keep working on because you think, okay, we have the meeting with sales. We say, all right, this is the ICP and the persona, and here are some other signals that we think might say that they're ready to go. I'm talking beyond sort of, I've asked for a demo. I'm thinking about other things. And then you're going to need to revisit that once you've kind of run it for a bit because, hey, we thought this, but were they any good?
Kind of goes back to the first question, right, is what is one of the biggest mistakes? And that is one of them that's really up there is a set and forget mentality, that we've got this great tool, we've set up our lead scoring, we're all good. It's a constant feedback loop between sales and marketing is the only way to optimize. And that's the job of a marketer, is to discover and optimize. And that needs to happen all the time, that feedback loop. Even if it has to be for a small organization, a process that you put on like every month or every week, or depending on the amount that you're looking at, we're going to look at these 10 sales and see what was in common with those and put a little bit of human logic behind it, I think is constant feedback. Yeah.
So Salesforce is obviously one of the key integrations you're going to want to set up out of the box because you've got to have that handover, and this is the mechanism to do that. What other integrations do you see have the most impact for early stage companies?
I think that being integrated with Google is very important. You want to be able to identify those customers and target those beyond HubSpot in your AdWords and whatnot. So that's always a good one. LinkedIn, depending on your organization, is a really good one too, being able to see lookalike audiences. It's all as part of acquisition. They have some tools that the forms will integrate directly. So, it saves a lot of time and effort. Also, depending on what you're using. So whether you have a Zoom info or a different kind of data enhancement or data appendage, like software that you use, having that integrated is really good. The churn within companies outside, you want to make sure that your data is clean and up to date. I think I've seen a lot of success with SMS and being able to set that up and your gateway for that, and to get that as part of your channel mix is a good one.
That might be if you're doing it for like customer support or for login, like for having your SMS gateway tied in, not just from a marketing perspective.
So let's talk about reporting. So what reporting dashboards do you always set up first in HubSpot? Because I feel like our clients, everybody wants to see everything, but what are like the must-haves you've got to have right out of the gate?
Right. One thing I do give of HubSpot compared to a lot of systems like it, their reporting is really robust. It's very open that I've found to be able to pull off different fields and different things. So kudos on that. I think they've done a really good job with that. And it can be as simple as or as complicated as you wish it to be. So beyond the standard activity reports, you've got your form fills and your emails and such like that. I think that context by lifecycle, like we're talking about, you want to see what your funnel looks like. It's quite a good one, easy one to set up within there. And it's always great to have that instant look at those leads that come from MQL, to your point before. Where are they now and who's lagging, what's sitting and what's the velocity through it? You can show that as well. The campaign performance is very good to move one step, especially if you're using multiple channels for a campaign, to step above the email alone and look at what a campaign is doing. That's always interesting. And to compare that, it's a great one to set up. Also, sales activity. You want to be able to see, once you hand those leads over, what is going on with them. Whether you're using HubSpot or Salesforce or your own cooked up CRM, once you hand that over, we want to be able to see what the logs of emails and email replies and calls and such to that opportunity or to that lead have been. And I think my favorite subject, Nicole, you might know this about me, is like retention and expansion. So you want to be able to not just look at what you're bringing into your funnel and it doesn't end at close one, but what's going on with your customer base and looking at satisfaction and intent signals within that might indicate shit. I think that's a really good one to set up as well. So like if you're a subscription, you do renewal by cohort, and these are all available in HubSpot. It's all in there if you dig.
Great. So you can really set up the whole customer life cycle there, from the campaigns that you're running, which wraps up email and paid media, etc., through to the contact creation and the sort of stages and the velocity of the pipeline, and then right through to retention and customer loyalty. So you can see the whole full piece there. Okay, I love that. But you're right. I do think out the gate, dashboards are pretty there and people can customize those pretty easily. Let's talk about AI. You mentioned a little bit about they have a new AI lead scoring tool, which I'd love to take a look at. But they have a bunch of other AI tools, HubSpot, under this Breeze, brand. Are they useful? Are they overhyped? What do you think?
I would put them in the overhyped bucket right now. I think they're a fantastic idea, honestly, but I actually played around with them myself the other day for workflow creation. And I have more fun hitting my head against a brick wall, to be honest. But, the idea is fantastic. It's just not there yet, but it will be. It's always going to need human interaction there. Anyone who sat up until 3:00 in the morning having a philosophical argument with AI knows that you're going to need that human interaction, and they're just not there yet. And I think that's the same way with these guys. It's going to be great to see maybe in another 5 years when AI becomes a little smarter. Now, that being said, I do have to say, as I said, I use AI every day, but for repetitive tasks and for tasks and processes that you've already set up, it's absolutely wonderful. I forget what I did without it. And it's the same here within HubSpot. If you have a very simple workflow that you want to set up, like, send a auto reply to a form fill. I mean, it can do it like that and you don't even need to think about it. But if you're asking it for anything a little bit more complicated or anything that cross over objects, it's just not there yet. And it's very slow, or it was for me.
Yeah, and I think that's the same on the content creation side. They have a bunch of things. Hey, we can create your social media posts, or we can create your blog posts, or what have you. And we have that in our instance. And, it's great to know that it's there.
Yeah.
Nicole, have you tested that out?
I've fiddled around with it a little bit, and it's kind of like all the other AI tools for content creation. You don't want to just let it run and do its thing. You've got to have the human part as well. So, yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see in a couple of years, like, what does it look like? Like, to Fiona's point, like, it could be fantastic for a super transactional email, something like that. But would I use it to write a blog post or a social post right now? No, just like I wouldn't use ChatGPT to write a blog post or a social post right now. So Same thing.
I think it's is another thing organizations need to understand. As the marketing tech stack gets more intelligent, so does the audience. So I feel that if you're putting out that AI content, this is from my experience, you guys are the experts, but if you're putting out that AI content, which is kind of transparent, it's like putting blood in the water and you're asking for a feedback that you don't want. So it always needs a human touch.
Absolutely. So let's talk about a rather recent development. HubSpot launched a new concept. They called it loop marketing. I guess this is going to replace inbound. So what's your take on this? I know you've done some digging into this. So what are your thoughts on it?
Loop marketing is a brilliant marketing concept from HubSpot, who are marketing geniuses, honestly, with their other inbound projects and whatnot. I feel that it is taking what marketers have been doing for decades, that constant feedback loop, and that's where they're talking about the loop. The AI, it spreads your brand, it learns, it takes the loop back in, and it expands. So it's constant improving, like within your marketing. When you're looking at it, it really is not taking place of the life cycle because it's still a linear move. It's just an optimization within it. I remember doing the same thing, and age myself, back in 2008 with Test and Target, I think it was, before they were bought by Adobe, which was like constantly testing and improving. Now, AI doing that for you is fantastic. I think that's great that you have the power of AI to do those simple tasks that you do yourself. But once again, I think without that human touch or the human interaction within it, it could get a little bit lost. It's only good as the data that's in there, and the data is only as good as you think it is. You know what I mean? It's only as pertinent to you as what you put in.
So that makes perfect sense. I mean, loop marketing, it has this stage: express. You express your brand, then you tailor it, then you amplify the message, and then you involve it. And the idea is it's this sort of infinity loop. And I think it's a reflection of, look, inbound was great as a program. And honestly, you said that HubSpot's a great marketer. As a company that sort of coined a movement and that has an event around it, brilliant. But I think it's a recognition that now you can't just publish content on your site and expect people to come and then linearly fill in a form and become a lead and an MQL and an SQL and an opportunity and a close. That's just not how buyers find you, and it's also not how buyers purchase. And so you've got many different types of signals now, and it's AI powered. So you've got to have a more complex buying process, and you've got to sort of respond to that as a marketer in a more sophisticated way. It feels at this point, from what we can see about it, why is it HubSpot? It feels like, have I heard this before? And are there gaps? There's more questions than answers, but it's early days. They just announced it.
Absolutely. It's the same idea as inbound, though. Inbound existed before HubSpot did. It's not like they're reinventing a brand new way to market, but they are wrapping tools around it, making it easier to understand and giving it to an audience where a startup people might not be with that 20 years of marketing experience behind them, easier to understand and consume. I think wrapping it in the AI tools gives it the great buzzwords of today. It sounds really good. I don't see it being the next inbound. I really don't. I think that HubSpot, again, is great with their Lifecycle and now with their loop, but it seems to be the loop ends. When does that loop end? There's nothing in here about retention. They're not talking about customer satisfaction or the revenue from retaining subscriptions and stuff like that. I'm wondering where in the loop that lives.
That's fair. So interesting. They're obviously trying to reflect the changes in marketing and buyer behavior powered by AI that we've seen. So, that's great. And we'll understand a little bit more about it as they go on. But just for now, worth sort of diving into a little bit and having on your radar, because that's the direction that HubSpot is going in.
I think that smart marketers have been doing this for a very long time, though. So it shouldn't be new information for anybody who's been successfully marketing up until this point. So it's just a new tool. And if I had $1 for every new tool that I was pushed at, like every day, I wouldn't be here talking to you right now. I'd probably be somewhere else. I'd be a Lifecycle coach or something.
There's a lot of options, and HubSpot needs to stay relevant in that new motion. Just as we wrap here, then, what other advice have you got for startups when it comes to HubSpot?
I think look at it as a core business tool, right? Not as an email sending tool or as your CRM only, if that's what you're using it for. Look at all the options because they do spread their options within their hubs are very cool. I mean, you can do a lot as a startup within there, but don't get complicated out of the box. Adapt it to your processes and then see what your processes work before becoming complicated. Again, I've seen people go in there and the first thing they do is set up 200 workflows that in 6 months, no one remembers what actually they did. Don't go in that direction. Make sure your data's clean and make sure that you're looking all the time, making sure that everything that is going through the sales or it's going through your life cycle is relevant. And again, go through that loop, adjust and optimize. Keep it simple.
So, Fiona, if people want to get in touch with you, where should they go?
Probably LinkedIn is the best. I'm on there and anyone can reach out if they have any questions.
Wonderful. So Fiona Smith is marketing, automation, and lifecycle consultant. Fiona, thanks for joining us today to walk us through everything HubSpot and how to get it set up and get the most out of that platform. It's absolutely critical. So I really appreciate all of your insights there. Thank you for your time. Nico, thanks to you too. And thanks to you for listening. And we'll see you all again this time next week.